The gavel slammed down with a resounding crack that echoed through the packed courtroom in Denver, Colorado. Judge Elena Ramirez's voice was steady and unyielding as she delivered the verdict that no one in the room had anticipated. Mr. Ryan Caldwell, the court finds you liable for emotional distress and a pattern of harassment spanning over a decade, including the documented incidents from your high school years. You are ordered to pay $250,000 in damages to the plaintiff, Ethan Whitaker, and to complete a mandatory 6-month program in sensitivity training focused on LGBTQ+ awareness. Ryan's face went pale, his once athletic frame slumping in the defendant's chair as murmurs rippled through the crowd like a wave. What no one knew was that this moment was the culmination of Ethan's long journey from a scared teenager in a small Oregon town to the confident man standing before the court today, his hand tightly clasped in his partner Marcus's for support. The air felt lighter somehow, even as the weight of 15 years pressed against his chest one final time. Memories flooded back uninvited as Ethan lowered himself into the wooden bench beside Marcus. Back in Ridgewood High, Ryan had ruled the hallways like a king. Star quarterback, homecoming hero, the guy every parent wanted their son to be. Ethan had been the opposite, quiet, artistic, always sketching in the margins of his notebooks during lunch. The bullying started small, almost playful at first. A shove in the locker room, a muttered freak when Ethan wore a colorful scarf his grandmother had knitted. Then it escalated. Whispers turned into shouts in the cafeteria. "Hey, Whitaker, you gonna kiss your boyfriend today?" Ryan and his crew would circle him after practice, laughing as they knocked his books to the ground or accidentally spilled soda on his drawings. Ethan never fought back physically. He just endured, head down, praying for graduation. But the day he confided in his best friend about liking boys, everything exploded. The rumor mill spun out of control, and Ryan made it personal. One rainy afternoon in the parking lot, Ryan cornered him alone. "You think you can just walk around like that and not expect consequences?" The shove turned into a hard push that sent Ethan stumbling into a chain-link fence, scraping his arm badly enough to need stitches. When he reported it the next morning, the principal leaned back in his chair with a sigh. "Ethan, have you considered how your choices might be provoking these situations? Maybe tone it down a bit for your own safety." The reverse blame hit harder than any punch. It wasn't just Ryan anymore. It was the system saying he deserved it. At home that night, his father slammed his fist on the dinner table so hard the plates rattled. "If you weren't parading around with that attitude, none of this would happen. We didn't raise you to be like this." His mother wiped her eyes but stayed silent, offering only a week. "Maybe your dad has a point, honey." Ethan left the table without eating, locking himself in his room where the tears came hot and fast. That night marked the beginning of the end for his family. He stopped talking about school, stopped sharing anything real. The isolation grew until it felt like a second skin. College in Denver became his escape hatch. He packed a single duffel bag the day after graduation and never looked back. The University of Colorado accepted him into the graphic design program on scholarship, and for the first time he breathed without looking over his shoulder. Yet the scars followed him in quiet ways. Panic when strangers laughed too loud, hesitation before opening up to anyone. He threw himself into late-night studio sessions, creating logos and posters that won awards, but inside he still felt broken. It took 3 years before he met Marcus at a local LGBTQ+ community center event. Marcus, a high school history teacher with warm brown eyes and an easy smile, didn't push. They started as friends, sharing coffee and stories about bad first dates that never actually happened for Ethan. Slowly, Marcus chipped away at the walls. "You don't have to carry it alone," he'd say during their long walks along the Platte River. Their first real date was simple. A picnic in City Park where Marcus listened as Ethan finally spoke the words he'd buried for so long. The relationship wasn't fireworks. It was steady, safe, built on trust that grew one honest conversation at a time. Marcus never demanded Ethan forget the past. Instead, he helped him face it. Even then, the old wounds reopened at unexpected moments. When Ethan's mother called on his 25th birthday, her voice hesitant, Your father misses you, but he just doesn't understand." Ethan hung up with shaking hands. Marcus held him through the night without saying much, just being there. Friendship circles formed too, a tight group of gay men who met monthly for board games and real talk. They became the family he chose, laughing over inside jokes while gently encouraging Ethan to apply for better jobs or speak at youth events. The turning point came 2 years ago when a local news story broke. Ryan Caldwell, now head coach at a prestigious private high school outside Denver, was accused of similar harassment toward a gay player on his team. The boy had transferred out after months of locker room torment. Ethan stared at the screen, stomach twisting. Marcus sat beside him, silent at first, then softly said, "This doesn't have to be your fight." But Ethan knew it did. The reverse blame all those years ago had taught him silence, protected no one. With Marcus's steady encouragement and help from a lawyer friend in the community, Ethan gathered old emails, witness statement from former classmates who had finally found their voices, and medical records showing years of anxiety therapy. The civil suit was filed quietly at first, but word spread. Ryan's lawyers fought hard, calling it ancient history, but the judge saw the pattern. Now, sitting in this courtroom with the verdict still ringing in his ears, Ethan felt the first real crack in the armor he'd worn for so long. Marcus squeezed his hand back, whispering, "You did it." Ryan's eyes met Ethan's across the room for the briefest second. Not angry, but something closer to regret. The unexpected consequence of all those years of pain was finally here, and it tasted like justice mixed with something deeper. Ethan didn't smile. He simply breathed, the beginning of healing already stirring inside him as the courtroom began to empty. The judge's words continued to echo as the bailiff announced a short recess. Ethan stood slowly, legs steady thanks to Marcus's arm around his waist. Outside in the sunlit hallway, the Denver skyline stretched bright and clear through the tall windows. Marcus pulled him into a quiet corner, his voice soft. "How are you feeling right now?" "Really?" Ethan leaned against the cool marble wall, letting the question sink in. For so long, the answer had been numb. Today it felt different, raw, alive, terrifying in its honesty. "Like I can finally stop running," he admitted. Marcus smiled, the kind that always reached his eyes, and pressed a gentle kiss to Ethan's temple. No big gestures, just the quiet strength that had carried them both through the last 4 years. The drive back to their cozy apartment in Capitol Hill gave Ethan time to let the flashbacks roll again, this time without the courtroom filter. College had been survival mode at first. Late nights in the design lab, sketching campaigns for local nonprofits because paid gigs felt too exposed. He avoided parties, avoided anything that might invite questions about his personal life. Then Marcus entered like a calm breeze. Their friendship started over bad campus coffee during a guest lecture on civil rights. Marcus shared stories of his own coming out in a conservative Texas family, the way he'd lost relatives but gained perspective. "Pain doesn't define you," he'd said once, "but how you respond to it does." Those words stuck. Their relationship deepened during a weekend hike in Rocky Mountain National Park. Halfway up the trail, Ethan slipped on loose gravel. Marcus caught him without hesitation, and in that moment of laughter and adrenaline, Ethan felt safe enough to say, "I think I'm falling for you." Marcus's answer was simple, "Good, because I've been falling since day one." They moved in together 6 months later, turning the small apartment into a home filled with Ethan's artwork and Marcus's books. Life wasn't perfect. There were nights when Ethan woke from nightmares about high school, heart racing, and Marcus would hold him until the shaking stopped. There were arguments too, when Ethan pushed Marcus away during a rough work deadline, convinced no one could truly love the broken parts. Marcus never yelled. He'd simply say, "I'm here when you're ready," and wait. That patience taught Ethan more about love than any grand gesture ever could. Family attempts at reconciliation came in fits and starts. His mother visited once, bringing homemade cookies and awkward hugs. "Your father is trying," she said over tea. But when Ethan introduced Marcus as his partner, the conversation stalled. She left early, promising to call. The calls grew less frequent. His sister, now married with kids in Oregon, sent birthday texts but never visited. The isolation hurt less with Marcus and their chosen family nearby. Weekly dinners with friends like Theo the barista and Jamal the nurse became therapy without the couch. They talked about everything: workplace microaggressions, pride parades, the fear that lingered even in progressive Denver. Ethan opened up about the reverse blame that had poisoned his self-worth. "The school made me feel like I asked for it," he confessed one night. Jamal nodded. "That's the real crime. They stole your voice." Professionally, Ethan thrived. His graphic design firm landed a contract with a national LGBTQ+ youth organization, creating campaigns that reached thousands. The work felt purposeful, a way to protect kids who reminded him of his younger self. Yet the lawsuit loomed in the background like a storm cloud. When the news about Ryan's latest incident broke, Ethan spent 3 sleepless nights pacing the living room. Marcus didn't pressure him. Instead, he researched lawyers and sat with Ethan through the initial consultation. "Whatever you decide, I'm beside you," he promised. Filing the papers felt like jumping off a cliff. Ryan's legal team responded with motions to dismiss, painting Ethan as bitter and money-hungry. The reverse blame tried to return, but this time Ethan had evidence, allies, and a voice that wouldn't shake. During the recess, Ethan checked his phone. A text from his mother: "Proud of you today. Call when you can." Simple words, but they landed like a lifeline. Marcus noticed and squeezed his shoulder. Small steps. The afternoon session brought more testimony. Former classmates took the stand, recounting how Ryan's behavior had created a toxic culture. One woman, now a mother herself, described watching Ethan walk the halls with his head down and feeling helpless. Ethan testified next, voice steady as he described the psychological toll, the anxiety medication, the therapy sessions where he learned to name the shame. Ryan's lawyer tried to twist it, suggesting Ethan had provoked the incidents by being open about his sexuality. The judge shut it down quickly. This courtroom will not entertain victim blaming. Back home that evening, Ethan and Marcus cooked pasta together, the familiar rhythm soothing. Marcus shared a story from his classroom about a student struggling with identity. "You gave that kid hope today without even knowing it." Ethan smiled for the first time all day. The journey wasn't over, but the path felt clearer. Family wounds still ached, friendship strengthened him, and Marcus's love anchored everything. Tomorrow the trial continued, but tonight he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of full healing. Morning light filtered through the apartment curtains as Ethan prepared for another day in court. Marcus handed him coffee, black with 2 sugars, exactly the way he liked it. "You've got this," he said, kissing him goodbye before heading to his own classroom. The simple ritual grounded Ethan, reminding him that life continued beyond the lawsuit. The drive downtown gave him space to reflect on how far his chosen family had carried him. Theo and Jamal had shown up at the courthouse yesterday, sitting in the gallery like silent guardians. Their support wasn't loud. It was consistent, the kind built over years of shared brunches and late-night texts during tough moments. The trial resumed with cross-examination of Ryan's character witnesses. His former football coach praised him as a leader, conveniently forgetting the locker room culture that had made Ethan dread PE class. Ethan sat tall, Marcus's words from last night echoing. When the judge called for the next witness, Ethan felt a surge of pride watching Jamal take the stand. As a counselor at the youth center, Jamal spoke about the long-term effects of bullying on mental health, citing statistics and personal stories that mirrored Ethan's. The defense tried to object, but the judge allowed it. Small victories piled up. Lunch break brought a surprise. Ethan's sister texted, "Saw the news." Dad watched too. He's quiet, but listening. Progress, however slow, felt monumental. Marcus met him for a quick sandwich in the park across from the courthouse. They sat on a bench under golden aspens, hands intertwined. "Remember our first hike?" Marcus asked. Ethan laughed softly. "You caught me when I slipped. Feels like you've been catching me ever since." Their romance had never been flashy, no dramatic proposals or public displays. It was in the everyday, Marcus grading papers while Ethan sketched at the kitchen table, Weekend farmers market runs, quiet arguments resolve with honest talks. Society still threw curveballs. A client once pulled a project after learning Ethan was gay, citing family values. Marcus had helped him process the rejection without letting it define his worth. Their loss, he'd said simply. Friendship circles expanded too. Through the youth organization, Ethan mentored a young designer named Alex who reminded him of himself at 18. Guiding Alex through coming-out fears and career doubts gave Ethan purpose. "You're not alone," he told the kid during one session, the words healing something inside himself. Ryan's team called character witnesses who painted him as reformed, a dedicated coach shaping young lives. But evidence mounted, old social media posts, deleted but recovered, showing the same slurs from high school. The pattern was undeniable. Afternoon testimony turned intense when Ryan himself took the stand. He denied intent, claiming boys will be boys, and that Ethan had overreacted. The judge interrupted multiple times, warning against deflection. Ethan watched Ryan's face, the same confident jawline, now lined with stress. For the first time, Ryan looked human, vulnerable. The session ended with the judge scheduling closing arguments for the next day. Outside, Theo waited with coffee and a hug. "Proud of you, man." Back at the apartment, Ethan and Marcus curled up on the couch, watching a mindless show. Marcus traced circles on Ethan's arm. "Whatever the verdict, you've already won by showing up." Ethan believed him. The internal conflict that once defined him, shame versus self-acceptance, had shifted. Family might never fully understand, but he no longer needed their validation to stand tall. Love from Marcus, strength from friends, and his own growth had rewritten the script. That night, sleep came easier. The past still lived in him, but it no longer controlled him. Tomorrow would bring the final chapter in court, and for the first time in years, Ethan faced it without fear. Closing arguments began under a sky that promised rain. Ethan's lawyer stood first, laying out the evidence methodically. The school reports ignored, the medical bills from therapy, the impact statement from experts. "This isn't about ancient history," she said. "It's about a pattern that continued until today." Ryan's attorney countered with passion, arguing statute of limitations and lack of direct proof linking past actions to current harm. But the judge had already ruled on admissibility. Ethan listened, heart steady thanks to Marcus sitting behind him. The day stretched with rebuttals. During a break, Ethan stepped outside for air. His phone buzzed, a voicemail from his father. "Son, I watched the coverage. I was wrong back then. Call me when you're ready." Tears pricked his eyes. Marcus found him there and listened without interrupting as Ethan played the message. "It's a start," Marcus said, pulling him close. Their relationship had weathered its own storms. Early on, Ethan's trust issues surfaced when Marcus received a friendly text from an ex. Instead of talking, Ethan shut down for days. Marcus waited patiently, then said, "I choose you every day, but I need you to choose trust too." They worked through it with couples counseling, emerging stronger. Love wasn't perfect. It was choosing each other despite the scars. Friend Theo organized a small gathering that evening, just a core group at their favorite Thai place. No pressure, just support. Jamal shared his own story of workplace discrimination, reminding everyone that growth came from community. Ethan spoke openly about the internal battle, the voice that still whispered he deserved the blame, versus the man he'd become. "Marcus showed me I was worth fighting for," he said. The table toasted quietly. Back home, Marcus and Ethan talked late into the night. "If the verdict goes our way, what then?" Marcus asked. Ethan thought about it. "Maybe reach out to my family more. Maybe mentor more kids. But mostly, I want us the life we're building." Their bond had deepened through the lawsuit. Marcus had taken personal days to attend hearings, sacrificing his own work. "You're my family," he said simply. The next morning brought closing statements. Ethan's team emphasized the psychological damage, lost confidence, strained family ties, the constant vigilance gay men often carried. Ryan's side pleaded for leniency, claiming he'd changed. The judge took the case under advisement, promising a decision within 48 hours. Waiting was torture, But Marcus made it bearable with small gestures, favorite meals, walks in the park, reminders that the outcome didn't erase the progress. Ethan visited the youth center, speaking to a group of teens about resilience. One boy asked, "Did it ever stop hurting?" Ethan answered honestly, "It changes. You learn to carry it differently." The words felt true. Societal pressures still existed, stares in certain neighborhoods, assumptions at work, but Ethan navigated them with newfound confidence. His career flourished. A major client praised his latest campaign for its authenticity. The call came sooner than expected. Court reconvened for the verdict. Ethan walked in with Marcus, friends filling the rows. Ryan sat rigid. Judge Ramirez began reading. The ruling was clear and harsh. Liability established. Damages awarded. Mandatory training ordered. Ryan's shoulders dropped. In the hallway afterward, Ryan approached hesitantly. "I was wrong back then. I didn't see it." Ethan met his eyes. "Seeing it now is the start." No forgiveness offered yet. That would take time, but the air felt different. Marcus waited nearby, proud and steady. Family texts flooded in. The journey of growth continued, one honest step at a time. The days following the verdict blurred into a mix of media calls and quiet reflection. Ethan declined most interviews, preferring to process privately with Marcus. They took a long weekend in the mountains, hiking trails where the only sounds were wind and birds. Marcus listened as Ethan unpacked the emotional layers, relief mixed with lingering grief for the boy he'd been. The training program might actually help him, Marcus suggested. Ethan nodded. "I hope so. Not for me, but for the next kid." Their romance felt renewed, conversations deeper. One evening by the campfire, Marcus said, "Marry me someday?" Ethan smiled. "Yes, when it feels right. No pressure, just promise." Back in Denver, life resumed. Ethan returned to his studio, designing a new series inspired by resilience. Friends celebrated with a backyard barbecue. Theo grilled burgers while Jamal shared updates from the youth center. "Two boys asked about your story," he said. Ethan felt the full circle. Family reconciliation moved slowly. His mother visited, meeting Marcus properly this time. "He's good for you," she admitted. His father sent a card. Awkward but sincere. "Proud of the man you've become." Small bridges, but bridges nonetheless. Societal pressures tested him still. A conservative client dropped him after the news broke, but 3 new ones signed on, drawn by his authenticity. Ryan completed his first training session and sent a short email through lawyers. "I'm listening now." Ethan didn't reply immediately. The internal conflict lingered. Was accountability enough? Marcus helped him weigh it. "You don't owe him peace. You owe yourself yours." Friendship provided perspective too. At monthly gatherings, the group discussed how justice looked different for everyone. Ethan realized his growth wasn't about forgetting, but integrating the pain into strength. A new conflict arose when an old classmate reached out, asking Ethan to speak at a school assembly about bullying prevention. The invitation stirred old fears, but Marcus encouraged him. "You've come so far." Ethan agreed, turning the experience into another layer of healing. Preparing the talk brought flashbacks, but this time he controlled the narrative. On stage, voice steady, he shared enough to inspire without reliving every wound. Students listened, some nodding in recognition. Afterward, a teacher thanked him. "This changes things." Home that night, Ethan and Marcus danced slowly in the living room to an old song. "I love the man you've become," Marcus whispered. Ethan felt it. The identity crisis resolved into quiet confidence. The lawsuit had forced confrontation, but love, friendship, and chosen family had built the foundation for true change. Months passed, and the court-ordered payments arrived in installments. Ethan donated a portion to the youth center, keeping the rest as a symbol of reclaimed power. Ryan finished the training program and reportedly changed his coaching style, implementing sensitivity workshops. Ethan heard through mutual contacts that Ryan had spoken publicly about his past mistakes. The unexpected consequence rippled outward, touching lives beyond their own. Ethan and Marcus planned a small commitment ceremony with close friends and family. His parents attended, his father shaking Marcus's hand with genuine warmth for the first time. "Take care of my son," he said. The moment healed old fractures. Their group of friends toasted the couple under string lights in the backyard, laughter filling the air. Ethan looked around at the faces, Marcus's steady love, Theo's humor, Jamal's wisdom, and felt complete. Work brought new opportunities. His designs won national recognition. One campaign featured in a major magazine highlighting LGBTQ plus voices. Societal pressures eased as acceptance grew in his circles, though he knew the broader fight continued. Internal peace settled deeply. The boy who once hid now stood openly, mentoring others without hesitation. One quiet evening, Ethan sat on the balcony with Marcus, city lights twinkling below. "We made it," he said. Marcus smiled. "We did, together." The journey from bullied teen to empowered man had taught him that growth came from facing pain, choosing love, and building community. Ryan's payment was justice, but the real victory was Ethan's life reclaimed. Is it true or false that court-mandated accountability after years of anti-gay, bullying, and reverse blame truly heals both victim and perpetrator? Or does it sometimes only reopen wounds that time alone cannot close?